Alright, here we are again, talking about the second great historic age of the Fae, the time of legends. Now, we are at a point now where mankind has awakened to kind of the knowledge of higher ideals. The Dark Fae and the Nature Fae have been greatly weakened by their previous conflicts. But both of them are aware that something more will come. This isn't the end. They both know that there will still be more conflict to follow. And in this, the Nature Fae begin to create warriors of light. The fairies shape themselves into clans, and among these clans, the Tuatha De Danann kind of take the forefront. Danann was a wise and strong female leader. She believed wholeheartedly in harmony within the world. And as many of the fairy clans began to intermingle with mortals, kind of in a personal sense, she retreated into the dreaming and listened to the great dreams of humanity and started trying to coax them into forms. She started to pull these dreams into shapes and to coalesce them into something concrete and usable. And this is where we first start to get the first kiths. And we talk about, in this area, and we're looking at page 34 at this point in the book, we talk about the Sluagh. They are the first ones mentioned right out the gate. That the Sluagh were born out of humanity's dreams. And actually, if you look at it, they were born out of both dreams of fear, but also dreams of overcoming fear. They are the things in the night. But in this case, actually, what the Tuatha De Danann, when they create the Sluagh, they're tasked with watching and observing the Fomians. They are dark things. They are scary things. But they're not. They are still a part of the nature spirit. You know, the darkness is still an element of nature. And the Sluagh kind of represent that. They also talk about, at this point, the She, who begin taking on roles of leaders and stewards. And then they'll talk about the ones that I can never pronounce the name of, the Clearachan, who are basically leprechauns. And then they talk about the Puka, who engage with humanity's more fickle aspects. And it's kind of at this point, with all of these champions now kind of doing a lot of the things that they were previously doing, that the Tuatha De Danann decided that the time is right to shed the forms that they had taken, to shed their mortal disguises, and restart the war with the Fomians. They attack. And the war begins again. And in the war, the Fomians begin to create their own champions, the Dark Kin. And basically, you can read on in specific, and it says that over centuries, the ground was stained with changeling blood. You know, it's pretty... Or sorry, with fairy blood. I keep swapping them around. No, the ground was stained with fairy blood. The changelings didn't exist yet. And the conflict finally came to a head with the Red King, the leader of the Fomians and the warlord of their armies, wielding a weapon called the Triumph Cask of Sorrows, a weapon which contained all the world's nightmares. Now, when we talk about magic weapons, when we talk about things, can you imagine a weapon that, in this case, quite literally contained all of the world's nightmares? It's terrifying. Really terrifying. Now, the only benefit of this was that the Red King himself was afraid to unleash the magic within it, as he had been warned that such an act would consume everything which ever existed. But it said that even contained, it still caused rains of fire and acid for miles around, and shattered mountains. So it was still a pretty badass weapon. Eventually, the Tuatha forces engaged the Red King in battle. Through a stroke of luck, they managed to fell the Red King. But in his moment of death, his heart was so full of hate that his power lashed out and destroyed the sword. Now, luckily, it did not destroy itself fully, but shattered into 9 pieces and scattered itself across the world. With their leader defeated, with the weapon missing, the Elder Dark basically crept away. It surrendered, it backed off, it retreated. And basically, at this point, the Tuatha realized that to keep things in harmony, in balance, with the Fomians having retreated, they had to depart as well. So they left 3 sacred oaths to the Fae, and then entered into the dreaming, and were never seen or heard from again. Now, at this point, as things had kind of finally settled into their current form, centuries passed as humanity developed, as the Fae developed, as they built bigger settlements and towns and cities, and the Fae followed suit. Some of the Fae found companions, some of them humans with magical aptitudes. This is the time when the Fae courts were first formed. And eventually, as time passed, the Fae began to pull away from the humans. They decided to leave the humans a bit more to their own devices, and they backed off. Now, unfortunately, humanity still fostered the evil that had been brought by the Fomians. And without the Fae close at hand guiding them, many of them began to twist things. Conflicts began to erupt between the humans. And then eventually that started to pull the Fae back in. When 2 human countries went together, the Fae courts that supported those countries began to war on each other. Now, it does make a statement in here that many historians today argue over if the courts at this point were the same as the Seelie and Unseelie courts today, or some archaic version thereof. I don't know, and I don't really think it matters. it was starting to show that the nature Fae were not a solid group. And that's really about the only thing that was important out of this. It doesn't really matter if they're the same. And it does say that some historical records indicate as many as 4 quarts. And over all of this time, humanity learned to control fire. They began crafting and metalworking. And then came the day that kind of everything went wrong for the Fae, in that mankind first crafted cold iron. And for whatever reason, whatever symbology of this changing of nature into something that is not of nature, imbued cold iron with the ability to destroy dreams. Now, there was a battle going on amongst the Fae at this, the Battle of Stones. And it said that the moment that mankind crafted cold iron, the ground beneath their feet shook. The battle came to a halt. And in that moment, the dream world separated from flesh forever. The creation of cold iron. That's what ended the Age of Legends. Now I'm going to stop this video. I'll be back in a few minutes. We'll move on to the next age.